and that's also led you to become a women's advocate for the UN for political participation and leadership.
Yes.
Congratulations. That is a huge thing.
I know.
Was that something that you'd always kind of dreamt of, or?
I mean, in my wildest dreams, I never thought that that would actually come to fruition. And when UN Women reached out to me last year from an article that I had written on the TIG, actually, which is my website for people who are like, what's the TIG? When they had reached out.
I like the plug there, smart businesswoman.
Yeah, right, exactly. Thank you. When they had reached out to me about it, I really was able to now maximize that opportunity. I asked them if I could go and intern at the UN headquarters, and they said, well, I don't think anyone's ever really asked us that. But they were able to get me the clearance, and I did. And,
amazing.
And yeah, just talk about a game changer. It's been pretty spectacular this past year.
Over many decades, there has been significant progress in advancing gender equality and attempts to eliminate discrimination against women. But there's still much more work to be done. Beyond the notion of it being a basic human right, there are, of course, huge socioeconomic ramifications as well. Meghan Markle is an actress who co-stars on the USA Network's legal drama Suits. She's also a UN Women political advocate for participation and leadership. That group has called for the year 2030 to be the expiration date for gender inequality. We'll get an update on that effort with Meghan, who joins me in studio. By the way, Meghan is also the founder of the TIG. That's a website for those with a hunger for food, travel, fashion, and beauty. What is UN Women?
UN Women is a branch, obviously, of the United Nations, but I think as it being a young organization, what they've really been striving to do between the He for She campaign, and then, of course, the work that I'm doing with them, which is specifically trying to find women in political positions, be it from a grassroots leadership level or beyond that, to say, we need to have a seat at the table, and we need to be leaders that are really comfortable having our voices heard, because when women are uplifted, the entire community is.
What does the work entail? What do you do?
Yes, so last February, actually, I went to Rwanda, which was incredible, because Rwanda has the highest percentage of female political participants of any other country in the world. So 64% of their government is female.
Wow.
So when you see 64% of the senators being women, it just changes the conversation that's at the forefront. So I went there to meet with those leaders, and then to also go to Gihembe refugee camp and to meet with female leaders at a more of a grassroots level, and then take that information, use things like this, and use opportunities like I have on the TIG to talk about things of really high value.
With all the problems Rwanda has had, how do you explain this seemingly contradiction?
I think it's really, truly, and especially being there on the ground, it was so interesting to see that in the wake of, obviously, such a horrendous experience that they had, which was not much more than 20 years ago or so, right? We're talking something that was fairly recent.
Yeah.
And in that, yes, so many of the men were lost in the genocide, so it gave women an opportunity to either succumb to that or to then find some strength and then mobilize in a way that was really empowering. And I think that's specifically what they've done, which is a great benchmark for what women all over the world could be doing. I go to Rwanda again on Monday with World Vision, actually, this time to talk about a water campaign. And people would typically say, well, what does water have to do with women's rights, and where's the correlation there? I think what's been really interesting is it's all so interconnected. And when you look at something like that, you say, okay, well, building wells, sure, you have the water and you have the life source, but what it also does is enables young girls to not have to walk miles to get water for their family, and instead they're able to stay in school, and that education is going to foster them being able to be very active in their society and empower female leadership.
What are the biggest obstacles?
I think the biggest obstacles are perhaps people being set in their ways.
Entrenched.
Sure, like having a very clear, be it from what you learn at home or what you're comfortable with, change is difficult for people. And, you watch some of these fathers or men who are supporting their wives or daughters in this, and perhaps in some communities, those men are shunned by their friends saying, what are you doing? You're upsetting a norm that's been comfortable for us. So it takes a lot of courage for anyone to be able to, fight against what has been customary and say, even if we've been doing this for a long time, doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing that we should be doing. And I think it's time for change.
We are shining. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome American TV and film actress and UN Women's Advocate for Political Participation and Leadership, Meghan Markle.
Well, good evening. That doesn't feel like enough, does it? It's just great evening. Maybe that's better. UN Secretary General, Executive Director Pumzile, thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am tremendously honored to be UN Women's Advocate for Political Participation and Leadership. I am proud to be a woman and a feminist. And this evening, I am extremely proud to stand before you on this significant day, which serves as a reminder to all of us of how far we've come, but also amid celebration, a reminder of the road ahead. I want to tell you a story that'll sort of give context to my being here and my work with UN Women. When I was just 11 years old, I unknowingly and somehow accidentally became a female advocate. It was around the same time as the Beijing conference, so a little over 20 years ago, where in my hometown of Los Angeles, a pivotal moment reshaped my notion of what is possible. See, I had been in school watching a TV show in elementary school, and this commercial came on with the tagline for this dishwashing liquid, and the tagline said, "Women all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans." Two boys from my class said, "Yeah, that's where women belong, in the kitchen." I remember feeling shocked and angry, and also just feeling so hurt. It just wasn't right, and something needed to be done. So I went home and I told my dad what had happened. And he encouraged me to write letters. So I did, to the most powerful people I could think of. Now, my 11-year-old self worked out that if I really wanted someone to hear me, well, then I should write a letter to the First Lady. So off I went, scribbling away to our First Lady at the time, Hillary Clinton. I also put pen to paper and I wrote a letter to my news source at the time, Linda Ellerby, who hosted a kids' news program, and then to powerhouse attorney Gloria Allred, because even at 11, I wanted to cover all my bases. Finally, I wrote to the soap manufacturer, and a few weeks went by, and to my surprise, I received letters of encouragement from Hillary Clinton, from Linda Ellerby, and from Gloria Allred. It was amazing. The kids' news show, they sent a camera crew to my home to cover the story. And it was roughly a month later when the soap manufacturer, Procter & Gamble, changed the commercial for their Ivory Clear dishwashing liquid. They changed it from "Women all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans" to "People all over America." It was at that moment that I realized the magnitude of my actions. At the age of 11, I had created my small level of impact by standing up for equality. Now, equality means that President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, whose country I recently visited as part of my learning mission with UN Women, it means that he is equal to the little girl at the Gihembe refugee camp who is dreaming about being president one day. Equality means that UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is equal to the young intern at the UN who is dreaming about shaking his hand. It means that a wife is equal to her husband, a sister to her brother. Not better, not worse. They are equal. UN Women, as you guys know, has defined the year 2030 as the expiration date for gender inequality. And here's what's staggering. The studies show that at the current rate, the elimination of gender inequality won't be possible until 2095. That's another 80 years from now. And when it comes to women's political participation and leadership, the percentage of female parliamentarians globally has only increased by 11% since 1995. 11%? In 20 years? Come on. This has to change. Women make up more than half of the world's population and potential. So it is neither just nor practical for their voices, for our voices, to go unheard at the highest levels of decision making. The way that we change that, in my opinion, is to mobilize girls and women to see their value as leaders and to support them in these efforts. To have leaders, such as President Kagame of Rwanda, continue to be a role model of a country which has a parliamentary system comprised of 64% female leaders. I mean, it's the highest of any government in the world, and it's unbelievable. We need more men like that, just as we need more men like my father, who championed my 11-year-old self to stand up for what is right. In doing this, we remind girls that their small voices are in fact not small at all, and that they can affect change. In doing this, we remind women that their involvement matters, that they need to become active in their communities, in their local governments, as well as in the highest parliamentary positions. It is just imperative. Women need a seat at the table. They need an invitation to be seated there. And in some cases, where this isn't available, well, then you know what? Then they need to create their own table. We need a global understanding that we cannot implement change effectively without women's political participation. It is said that girls with dreams become women with vision. May we empower each other to carry out such vision, because it isn't enough to simply talk about equality. One must believe in it. And it isn't enough to simply believe in it. One must work at it. Let us work at it together, starting now. Thank you so much.